Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is Life List, a birding podcast. I am George Armistead here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. Al, what's kicking, chicken?
Hey, George has said, we're not going to invite Mollee today because she didn't fall off the radar when we were doing
when we were with Bonner
recording with Bonner, and I had all this, stuff to say, and my connection from Qatar just cut out. I cut out from Qatar, and then so George is feeling sorry for me, and he's like, yeah, we're just going to have Alvaro on this time because
that's what happened, everybody.
Has so much time, time that he could have spoken and said funny things and stuff. And instead he was there just, crying. And I couldn't even have beer because I was in Qatar. It's like, geez.
Remember for the World Cup, they had like Budweiser as a sponsor and everything. And they were going to be like, yes, we're going to make exceptions. Everybody can have beer. And then like a couple days before, they were like, yeah, no beer for anybody.
No beer. Yeah. And like in the hotels, there is beer, but it's like, like Budweiser for like $18. I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No.
I'd rather
not. It's not right.
Know.
Yeah,
it's not right.
Of all the injustices in the world presently, this one ranks pretty high, I would say.
Yeah. This injustice is for you, as the Budweiser ad would say.
For those that want to know, Mollee is gallivanting around the western United States right now. So she's busy. She's got stuff going on.
Busy.
I saw she was at Red Rocks last night for a show.
Yeah. Like she was giving a show, like she was like on the stage, like, hey, I'm Mollee, everybody.
The video I saw, she was not obviously on the stage at any point, but I would not rule it out. I would not rule it out.
She's like, you may know me from podcasts such as Life List, a birding podcast, Or she's like just screaming and somebody goes, oh my God, is that Mollee from Life List? Get her up on stage,
Yeah, I'm sure that happened. Have you been to Red Rocks, Al? Have you ever seen a show at Red Rocks?
No, I've been to Red Rocks, the place, on a, I don't know why No, it's Colorado, isn't it?
Yeah, the place I'm talking about is in Denver, yeah.
Yeah. I thought you said Idaho. But I was there, and I'm not sure if I was there because of a tour or because of something, but we went to Red Rocks. Maybe there's birding around there. I don't remember.
Yeah, there is a Red Rock Pass in Idaho, and that's what I was referring to. But the Red Rock's like the concert venue in. I've never been birding there, but I'm sure it would be actually a pretty good place. There's got to be a few things to look for. There's got to be like white-throated swifts and rock wrens or something up there.
Yeah, I know that I did get a lifer. It might have been an ABA thing. That's what was going on. I got a lifer. We ate Rocky Mountain oysters at Red Rocks. It was
juicy.
Juicy. Well, these were kind of fatty, but I think, my take on it was if you gave this meat to the Argentinians, they would know how to make it really good.
Yeah.
Because it had the right consistencies of fat and meatiness, and it needed salt, and I think they had breaded them or something.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm like, no, that's wrong. This needs to be done a different way with like lemon and salt. And the Argentinians or the Uruguayans would know how to do this. So that was my impression of eating, essentially testicles.
Yes, and I'd like to further qualify that and say that they are bovine testicles, right? Or are they buffalo?
Well, that's how they're sold as.
Yeah. You weren't specific, and I wanted folks to to have the
George is worried I'm offending, like or something.
Yeah.
He's going to make me misunderstood.
Yeah, or we might start attracting a whole different genre of human being to this podcast. But
and for all I know, if they're really popular and they don't have enough like bowls at their dealing with. Maybe they replace some with sheep. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't really say.
I got to say, I've only had them once, and
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I did not know what I was having, and I thought it was just like a big meatball. I was like, wow, all right, pretty good. And someone's like, you want another? And I was like, sure, I'll have another one.
Should have these,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the Swedes should not have a monopoly on these.
So yeah, I had a different lifer food the other day. I ate those larvae in Africa. I forget what they're called. The big,
like a grub. It was like a grub.
The grub. They were kind of in a salad. And again, I thought like the flavor. There's flavor here, but they've overcooked them, and they've kind of tried to, I don't know, make them kind of crunchy. And I'm sure that there's, when the locals eat them, they probably eat them like much more rare rather than well done. So
yes,
I don't know.
Yeah, fresh out of the ground. Do you think sometimes?
It's from a tree. Yeah, it's a beetle larvae. So
okay.
But I was like, that's fine. That's great. And I chose I actually went for them specifically, and then the crocodile also that they were serving. So I was like, okay, I've eaten alligator, now I've eaten crocodile. So
I have to say that is one of the things I really do like about what we do is going to some of these areas and eating oddities. Like, I think I've probably told this story before in the podcast, but one of my favorites was going to the Pampa de Achala in Argentina. And we went to this restaurant was it Tafi del Valle? And they had on the menu wild beast similar to a rabbit in brine.
That's what this is from one of the early podcasts. Yes. This is
it was way back when.
First 10 or something.
And I was
wild
like,
beast.
Yeah. So they had it translated into English, wild beast similar to a rabbit in brine. And I was like, they were like, so what, they came to us and they're like, what we have? And I was like, I will have the wild beast similar to a rabbit in brine.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. That was like Pampas Vizcacha. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
They don't eat the one up in the which you were saying, as I recall, there's the two Vizcachas, right? There's the plains, and then
there's multiple. There's more than two, but
right. Yeah, but I guess there's one
in that
they
part
eat,
of the world.
Right?
Yeah. It's Pampas. It's the one the plains. Yeah. So the other one isn't eaten. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, those are good tidbits. So you had the grubs.
Had the grubs.
I'd be curious to try those myself. I don't think I have tried those. Tried some other things similar, but not there.
Yeah.
Well, and you didn't get sick.
No, not from that. But there's something else going around. But yeah.
Oh boy,
nothing major.
Fun. Yeah.
Nothing major. Yeah. It's one of those tour things.
You lost your connectivity from us while Mollee and I were chatting with Bonner, which was a ton of fun, and we did miss you, Al. We missed you. And
I listened to the other day, and it was like 30 minutes after I'm gone, somebody said, "Oh, by the way, like
we lost Al.
Was gone." It's like so.
Well, we thought you might come back. Yeah, we were hoping you'd come back, and then we were like, eventually, we're like,
then it was just no good. Yeah. Didn't work.
But the connection issues were not your only issues while in Qatar, I understand, Alvaro.
That's right. Yeah, I had many issues. So, and I was alluding to it before we got together because it had just basically happened, So I was like, you guys are not going to believe this. So I thought, so here's the thing. I'm going to South Africa. And South Africa is about as far away as you can get from North America. Like really. Because you got to go to the other side of the world. And then you're like, okay, I'm on the other side of the world. Now, let's go to the Southern Hemisphere. Right? So it's like a big old dog leg. There's no easy way to do this. There's no, I'm sure a straight line flight would be way easier. Nobody does it. No reason to, right? So I always think, oh, this is a time where I could go and just do a little stopover somewhere. And what has worked out is Qatar Airlines allows you to stop over for a day or two or whatever you want. They don't charge you any more for the ticket. So it's like, great. And it's, safe as far as generally safe as a traveler. And you can rent a car there, good roads, no beer, and lots of good birds, a lot of migratory birds there. It's really great for, well, some of the desert stuff, but also shorebirds and, migrant European birds, raptors. So I always kind of enjoy doing this. I've done it a couple of times, 3 times. I don't know. But in any case, the one thing about Qatar is that there's signs in English for most things, and you kind of like understand stuff. But I remember like the first time I went, there was this public road to a beach. Like there's like little beach, right
Access
by
point?
access point, and right at the beach, there's like little tables with, little palm trees that somebody's tried to like plant there, but they're half dead. And you're like, okay, this is a public beach. But when I'm going there, there's a massive sign in like multiple languages. Oil installation, something, no photography, you may be arrested, this and that, you know. And I'm like, so what gives? Am I allowed to be here? Am I not allowed to be here? Can I have a camera? Can I not have a camera? Can you go to the beach, but you just can't take pictures? Like, it's really unclear what the hell you're allowed to do there or not. And then people sort of seem to know.
Mm-hmm.
And this beach was full of terns. Like, this is like, and I remember it was the same bird that got me in trouble. This time, Saunder's tern. I'm looking for this thing that looks like a little tern, like a least tern, but it's not.
Yeah.
And there's all these terns there, and I'm trying to photograph them. And then I remember this is the first time, seeing a vehicle in the distance that looked official. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Right.
So I've always had this kind of concern about what you can and cannot do in Qatar, because I've already encountered this uncertainty. So this time around, like, I'm thinking the worst thing that can happen to me is like Israel throws a bomb on me. I mean, this has been happening over there, but it didn't happen.
That's
Get my
lucky,
car. I go birding. In fact, the morning I went out to this really good birding spot, meet some local birders. They tell me basically how to find the pharaoh eagle owl, and I see the pharaoh eagle owl. I see like, all sorts of cool birds. Then I say, I don't know if you've seen pharaoh eagle owl, but it's like a big old thing, like
it's like a great horned owl of the desert. Yeah.
Of the desert, right. And and then there's like Persian deer and all sorts of cool things. Then I go to the coast. I done my desert for the morning, go to the coast, and I'm like, once again, I'm going to look for shorebirds. I'm going to look for that Saunder's tern. Saunder's tern, I'm thinking maybe there's a rare gull or something. We never know. I know I did see some cool gulls. But we get to this public beach again. There's like parking. There's like little garbage cans, Everything's like, this is a public beach. And then to the left of me is like some power plant thing, and it's like just a, regular old power plant with like an outflow, and the outflow is full of birds. And I see all this fencing to one side. I see fences around the power plant. And like between me and the birds, there was nothing. There's like nothing. There's a couple of pipes, like these plastic pipes, but it looked kind of like, no signs that said anything, like no trespassing, no nothing. And kind of an open, like the beach kind of continues into this more wild beach. And again, everything that looks like off limits is behind a fence. So I'm like, there's no fence. I'm fine, right?
Right. Should be in good shape here. Yeah.
Should be in good shape. And I'm sitting there photographing all these terns and these shorebirds, and everything's going by, and hundreds of photos. And then I'm just, I got my scope out, whatever. And then like a pickup truck pulls up, like with the lights going, like,
Oh boy.
like, oh crap. And at first I thought, it was going to be like, hey, look, don't go any further out that way, because that's, as you can see where the fences are and stuff, you don't want to go there. But they're like, essentially, you're in like a place where you should not be. And my car is just like, I don't know, 100 feet away from where I am, parked in a place that's got a garbage can and, a little table.
Like obvious public place.
Obvious public place. Between me and the car, the only thing are these plastic pipes. And he says, you crossed the pipes. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, okay. I mean,
you're like, yes, right, yes, I did. Yes.
I say, well, but I did not see any sign. And he said, well, the signs are over there. And the signs are in a completely different direction, like away from where the cars park. And he points like, several hundred yards over there, like there's a sign. I'm like, well, I didn't see that sign because you see where my car is. That's how I walked. But there's no sign. He said, this is absolutely
not good.
You cannot be here. This is a problem. And I'm like, okay, well, so I tell him my name and my passport's in the car, right? So I show him like my driver's license, which is a weird thing, those driver's license. And they asked me questions. One of them was like a friendly guy, like good cop, and the other one was like a mean guy.
Oh boy. Cop. They literally had a good cop and a bad cop?
Yeah, they had a good cop and a bad cop.
That's impressive, Qatar. Way to go on
I know.
Yeah.
They must have been watching all the TV shows, the buddy movie,
It's not easy to get the right people for the right job.
Right. I know. And, you don't want to put two bad cops in the same car, that they made that choice. Like, we got to put a good cop and a bad cop here. So, and I'm totally not worried about any of this. I'm like, this is all going to resolve itself, obviously, because I've done nothing. And he says, well, we're going to talk to our supervisor. I was like, okay, they radio in the supervisor. Supervisor's going to come over. I'm like, all right. And I'm expecting like a guy in a suit because their car says like police, but it also says like security or something like, and I'm like, I think these guys
dog
are like
catcher,
security guards, but whatever, but they're sort of police or what have you. But then like the next car pulls over and like guys get out with machine guns. All right. Like I haven't seen a long gun yet. Like I've just seen these two kind of like, and I'm like, shit, this is like getting way more serious. Like this is like elevated to some other level. Right. And I'm explaining, I'm looking at the birds and the Saunder's tern and, I'm pointing to the birds and he's like, what is this? They point to the scope and I was like, oh, it's a telescope. I actually had one guy look at something in the scope so he could see what it was. And then, then they're like, are you taking photographs? And yes, but are you taking photographs of the installation? I'm like, no, I'm just taking photographs of the birds. And then like they're said, we need to see these photographs you've taken. So I flip open the camera, at this point, and I'm trying to think, shit, I hope it didn't point at some bird flying that was flying in front of the installation, so I start scrolling, it's like, okay, sand plovers, curlew sandpipers, terns, gulls, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Like, I'm just like going. I'm just like, I'm going to keep going till the guy says, enough, I've seen enough. And
or until he's like, is that a Saunder's tern?
Yeah, that's right. He's like, here's the one you're looking for. And he basically is like, in his face, I can tell he's like, the next photo is the incriminating one. And we're going to
get you.
Yeah. And then it's like, no, it's like Dunlin. Juvenile Dunlin. We don't see juvenile Dunlins in North America. This is a cool photo, all this stuff. And like lesser sand plover, or well, I guess Tibetan sand plover, greater sand plover, Kentish plover.
I'm sure you were explaining the taxonomic, trivialities to him as well.
I wish his English was a little stronger so I could have really gotten into things with him and, explain what
bored the piss out of him.
Yeah. So there's a point where he just goes, I think this idiot is telling the truth.
He's like, Jesus Christ, this guy really is looking at birds.
This is a clown looking at birds with a bunch of equipment who doesn't even have his passport, So then they're like, okay, so we need to see your passport, and I was like, okay, and I have to go to the car. Okay, this cop will go with you. And bad cop, who is a little bit like, some of those photos that have been coming out of those ICE agents, a little portly. You know what I'm saying? He's not your fit
Maybe you're
human.
saying you could probably outrun him, is what you're really saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I wouldn't want to do that. I would not want to knowingly break the law in Qatar. But this cop, then he has to go, and the pipes that I went over, actually, they were not huge or anything, but they weren't tiny, so you sort of have to step over them. And he had kind of shortish legs, so it was sort of like he was getting on a horse, when he was like
going over these pipes. I have to step over the pipes.
And then there was a bit of a rise to get to my car, and it was one of these things where it was like the feet were going, like getting up there, and he's definitely like
so pissed.
His role is to drive around in that car, and
not to be scrambling around and
not to be scrambling up and down. So, and then the other car then is driven around, to meet me, and then they see my passport. They phone it in, radio it all in, and then they photograph all of my equipment. Right? They photograph everything, like of what I've been doing and stuff, and it was like they're talking to other officials or whatever, and then there's a point in time where like the supervisor, who is actually they've all been really nice. I'm kind of telling, the idea is that the bad cop was eventually he kind of toned it down, and he was looking through the scope.
He warmed up to you a little bit. He was like, what? This guy's just looking at birds. He's
exactly. Once they just realized I was looking at birds, then they felt like a little bit more. I think there was pity. There's a little bit of pity.
They're like, this is sad, actually.
This is sad.
Yeah, this guy's
he could be. I know he could be out there doing something useful with his life, and he's sitting here, and they couldn't believe that I'm there for one day, and he says, "You're here for one day. Are you going to like places?" I said, "No, I'm just looking for birds." He said, "All day," and I was like, "All day? You're leaving tomorrow?" Yes, and then the other bit that was like crazy was like my passport had been stamped. It hadn't been stamped, and they gave me a visa, but they hadn't stamped the visa. So the visa said, for 90-day entry or something like that. But it didn't say when I arrived in the country. Then they were like, we need to know when you arrived in the country. And I'm like, oh, how do I, what? Then it occurred to me, Verizon had sent me a message like, welcome to Qatar. And I show him the message. He said, here's what I get into the country. And it matched what I told them, verbally. Everything matched and everything. And they were like, that was really when they relaxed the whole deal.
They're like, enough is enough. This guy's legit.
This guy's legit.
Weird bird guy. We're okay with you.
Yeah. And they asked me a few questions about birds. But I was actually, when those big guns came out, I realized that they had the potential to just like throw me in jail. And then the supervisor said, look, everything's fine this time. Mistakes happen. If you ever have a situation like this again, or tell all your friends or whatever coming around here, they cannot be walking around near any installation or photographing anything that is
no pipes,
vital.
Stay away from the pipes.
Don't walk over pipes. Don't do anything. And he said, because you will end up in jail.
Jesus.
This is what you have done today could have ended up in jail. And the fact that we were able to resolve this is great for you and it's great for us. But it was like, then I was like, I think my general, being calm about stuff saved me,
Well, I think you could look at that two ways. Like it might have, resulted in you stepping over a couple pipes that.
Yeah, but a couple of pipes, but that's not being calm about stuff because I think that was just sort of like, I'm in a different country, and if this was in my country, this would not be anything, right? I just not have. I should have had the feels from that last time where I was like way more. Like, I have no idea what is legit here and what isn't, because I had this kind of feeling like I've been here before looking for the stupid Saunder's tern where I was like feeling uncomfortable. This time I'm like, well, this one has no big sign. So no
should
problem.
Be good. Yeah.
Should be good. I took seriously, 1,000 photographs of flying terns, different birds, 0 Saunder's terns.
Oh gosh.
I've still not seen a Saunder's tern. I've invested a lot of time on Saunder's tern. I think
you're
I
done
will
with
probably
that?
do a tour
Yeah.
entirely so I can see a
dude.
frickin' Saunder's tern.
Yeah, we got to go. We should do an Oman trip. I think that's my spot where I've seen them. Was in Oman.
Yeah. You know, the other thing, I got to be honest with one thing. Like, I think if I'd been a real European looking guy, I think they would have been a lot more likely to hassle me.
Really?
I think there was probably a little thing of like, a little like some level of rounding the sharp edges by being a Latino looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
And also, a lot of the people who do the work there, all the work that has to be done in the country are either Filipino, Indian, Nepalese. So I think there was a certain level of comfort with the fact that I didn't seem like I was a person who came in there with like privilege and I know better, or in my country, I was kind of, I would say mellow and friendly, smiled, and moderately subservient to their requests. And I think all of that helped.
Yeah.
But if I'd come in there and I was like, kind of New York, or it's like, I don't know what the hell you're doing, blah, blah, blah. It's like bad. That would have bad.
Yeah.
It
not registered well.
Not registered well. So I got saved by a lot of things. But then later I was like, can't believe it. I almost got freaking arrested in Qatar. Like,
right. And the scary part there is like, once you're arrested, like, not only might you not make it to your tour on time, when are you getting out of there?
With the shame. Yeah.
Yeah. The shame too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to be exchanged for other prisoners. I'm sure there's like Qataris birder that's in some Australian jail somewhere.
They'd swing a deal for you.
Swing a deal. Yeah. No, but they're actually nice. They were polite. They were, the thing I should mention, after all of it kind of relaxed, they said, here's water, have some water. And they gave me bottles of water. And if you've ever been in that Middle Eastern desert, it's pretty hot. And it was moderately hot. We were just standing out there.
Yeah.
And they were
and the
essentially
moisture just evaporates away from you pretty quickly.
They were kind and respectful in every way, other than the fact that there was the fear of like, they've got guns and power.
Hey there, Life List friends, and I am talking to you, Angelo Romanchik, and I'm talking to you, Margaret Leonard, you, Matt Alexander, you, Chuck Von Rosbach, and Danette Henderson, you too, David Jones, also talking to you, and Hunter Hamilton, thank you so much. You guys are our newest friends to join our Patreon. If you haven't checked out Patreon, you should do so now. We got a bunch of new stuff we're putting together. Recent episodes, Alvaro's talking about cormorants on a crazy little expedition he did up in his new home in Canada. Molly's got some book reviews, and I also talked about some shorebirding I did at Bombay Hook and the Forsyth Refuge. And just now I got done talking about some news and notes and also some stuff in the field. So yeah, check it out. Become a timberdoodle or a boom chachalaka or even a gadfly. We would be thrilled and honored to have you guys as Patreon members. Thanks to you all who have joined so far. We really, really appreciate it. I'll say I did a number of Middle Eastern tours to Oman in the UAE, and I love the Middle Eastern birding. It's exciting. I love deserts. I love open space. And then the shorebirding, as you mentioned, and the terns. I remember spending a lot of time looking for and eventually looking at white-cheeked terns along the coast in a few places.
Yeah,
and
I've seen a bunch of those. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. But it's fun birding. And the first trip I did there, somehow word got out that we were coming there. I think British birding tour companies had been there before, but we were like the first American birding tour. And when we came, the secretary of like security or whatever came out. They met us just after we exited the plane. They were like, yeah, welcome, and we're so glad to have you guys here, because we all met in Dubai and then flew from Dubai into Oman. And we birded around Dubai in the UAE for a while. We got there, and they actually waived our entry fees. They were like, wow. And then and as you get into the airport there in Muscat, there's like they had like Arabian oryx and like I think they had like crab plover, all sorts of like birds and wildlife stuff. I think they were pretty stoked actually that people were coming. Americans in particular were coming to enjoy their wildlife there. Yeah. So I would actually love to go back to Oman. We will do that someday.
Oh, man.
Yes. Old Arabia, as a friend of mine used to say. He was like, Oman is old Arabia. And yet it's very modern relative to much of the rest of the Middle East.
I would suggest, if some of you who've never been out to that part of the world, just look at the map. And there's so many places that you have heard of for political reasons, like whether it's like Yemen or Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and look at the different sizes of these places and where they are, and the different places where there's mountains, where there isn't, who's got which ocean and what have you. And to me, it's one of these places I think a lot of people have heard about these countries, these spots, but have never actually placed them on the map, how they relate to each other. And in fact, they're not all the same. Obviously, nothing is all the same, right? And I look forward to actually visiting other parts of the Middle East. It's definitely really good birding and some rather unusual birds that, I've yet to come across in my short time there, because they're low density desert kind of stuff. And certainly Oman appears to be one of the best places to go and see some of this stuff. Yeah. And if Yemen wasn't so problematic, that looks like an awesome
be a very
spot
exciting
too,
place
with the mountains.
And what's happening now is, kind of talking about Yemen, is that there are now direct flights from, I think, Abu Dhabi to Socotra. So a lot more people now are going to Socotra, which a lot of folks may not know, but is an island, technically part of Yemen, offshore and isolated from a lot
birds.
And it's got a bunch of endemic birds. It's got, what's the tree? Is it like the blood tree? It's like dragon's blood.
Right, really strange looking tree, sort of like a baobab.
Yes, kinda. Or a euphorb of something.
Yeah.
But it's got a bunch of cool birds. I think like most of the world's, I've never known, Juanin's petrels nest there, I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in going there at some point.
Joaquin's.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we made that joke again, like about episode 10, how Joaquin Phoenix has 2 petrels named for him.
That's right.
Juanin. Well, it's actually Juanin, but hey, come on, it's close enough.
Juanin is, and it's actually a really cool seabird. It sort of looks like a giant storm petrel.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurs over these, like the waters you see it on are super calm, like usually like really flat, calm, tropical waters, kind of northern Indian Ocean, cool birds. Yeah, it's the dragon's blood tree that's endemic to Socotra. That would be a fun place to go. And I actually had a friend that just went, and a couple people I know have been there and really enjoyed it. So that would be a fun one to do, to add into the mix at some point.
The white-cheeked tern, again, like if you look at the map of where that thing lives, it's really like a Middle Eastern species, kind of ventures somewhat into India. But in winter, like it overlaps with common terns. And I have like seen them in summer, and they're really obvious when they're in summer. They're totally different little things. They're weird, kind of muddy looking terns, like But in winter molting, this common versus white-cheeked tern was like
tricky.
And I've
when
got
they're next to each other, not such like it's still hard when they're next to each other because I've only seen them in the winter with common terns usually. And side by side, you can pick them out, but it takes care. If one was to show up in isolation, you got to be paying attention.
Are molting that I was seeing, and I was like, I've got to go through the photos, but I think there's a few that are really like I don't know if I could identify them either way, but I'm going to have to read more about it.
It's really a Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf bird, but also in the Red Sea and northern part of Indian Ocean. But cool bird,
yeah. So that was my Qatar story. Really great birds. I have a lot of nice photos from the place. I still have not seen a crab plover. Qatar's not the best place to see them year round. There's some good months for them, but again, that's one to see elsewhere, like Oman.
Yeah, classic bird, the crab plover, and a lot of great birding to be done out there. Al, what did you see once you finally got to South Africa?
Saw a whole bunch of stuff. It was a difficult weather trip. I've done South Africa in the winter, and I've done it like kind of in the fall-ish, but this was the spring, so this is the time when things get really popping. But the weather was really windy in the Cape area and cold. And it was winter. It was colder than when we were there in winter. So it messed up a few things. We could not actually get out on the pelagic. It was like scrubbed. We had a 3-day window, and it just didn't happen. Yet on the other two trips, including winter, it's been no problem. So that's kind of a drag.
Best of times, that's usually a pretty rough ride out there. Some great birding, but it is.
Yeah. So but we saw a lot of stuff, and some things that were moderately unusual, but the great things was seeing some of the birds that might see other times in breeding plumage, but rather than looking brown and streaky, the weavers all were bright yellow, and birds were in full song. And then we said birds and wine, so we had a lot of wine and food. I had the best steak I've ever had. Let's put it this way: top 5 steaks of my life at one of the wineries in the Cape region. We actually also went to this big famous steakhouse in Durban area. Not nearly as good of a steak as that one at the wine spot. Yeah, and a lot of mammals, of course, including, some new ones for me. The southern oryx was a good one. It's got a different name. What do they call it? Sable?
Gemsbok.
No.
It's Gemsbok?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's it. So I saw mountain zebra. Mountain zebra was one of the things I joked about that I really wanted to see, and I know people are saying, well, it's zebra, isn't it? But I'm like, the places where they actually live, people call them zebras, so I'm going to call it zebra.
Yeah.
It sounds better. Sounds more.
I don't know about
cooler.
That. Not sure I agree with that. Yeah. I like the long E. I like the long E following the Z.
Yeah, but you say plover too, so that's
I do say plover. I like the long vowels. Yeah. I mean, what about like X?
I'm a plover lover, you say?
Oh,
you can't be a plover lover.
Yeah.
This sounds weird.
I could be if Mr. Lover. Yeah.
Yeah. That's bombastic.
Yeah, exactly. Some shaggy. Have you done, now how do you pronounce the word Xenops?
Xenops?
Oh, you do, huh? Is that for serious, or are you just messing?
No, I think it's right. I mean, yeah.
Because I of course say Xenops.
Yeah. Xenops.
Yeah. But it's just like I don't know, maybe it's an Americanism. I don't know.
Again, like the zebra situation, I've learned to accept the fact that all English speakers that live in Africa call those awesome birds with crests and funny reddish and green plumages turacos. They're not turacos, they're turacos. And I'm like, if they call them turacos, I think we should all call them turacos, not turacos.
Yeah.
And
I
On the
actually think
flip
that sounds
side,
better. I like that. I like the sound of that better. Yeah.
on the flip side of it is like we did see 2 species of jasanas, which, our local guide Keith Valentine could not say. He was like jacana, right? And I'm like, well, I think, really the real name is jasana.
I thought it was
And
like jasana.
yeah, I know. That's even more like that. That's,
Yeah.
that's if you really want to impress the peeps. But I don't think he would, I don't think he
Keith
was
wasn't coming
comfortable
around
with
on
it.
that one.
No. But so I joked at first that I really wanted to see a mountain zebra, and we actually found them, and everybody was like, why did you really want to see that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just like I've been in its range 2 times and thought it would be neat to see them and failed, and third time actually found them. I joked again, like when we were in the Durban area, that one thing that I've never seen before that would be cool is leopard.
Oh,
And
yes.
and then we were doing a night drive, and just we had heard about this painted snipe, greater painted snipe with chicks.
Oh,
So I told our guide, sort of safari guide, Marcel, hey, in the evening that's going to be good to see them. We went there and we saw them in the evening. And we went back for dinner, and then we're doing the night drive. And then he said, do you think those, and it was a lifer for him. So he's like, do you think those painted snipes are going to be out at night? And I said, for sure. We went back to the same spot, painted snipes out there. We see it again, at night doing his thing. It kind of hides in the reeds with his little chicks. And it's the male that takes care of the chicks. And we're like all happy that we saw the painted snipe again. And we turn around to go back to an area that, a river area that was good for night, stuff. And we turn around, go a little bit, and I see some eyes in the bushes. And I said, oh, here's something coming. And he looks and he goes, leopard. And I start going, leopard? And I see it start crossing the road. I'm like screaming, leopard, 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 leopard. And everybody in my vehicle all sees this leopard actually cross the road slowly, slinking,
mm-hmm. So fluid.
And then we just put it in neutral and kind of roll in to like where it had crossed. And it's right at the edge of the bush. And it sits there and starts spraying and just hangs out, turns around, gives us a full head view, and then just disappears into the night. And unfortunately, the other vehicle that was also watching race over, and it was too late. They missed it.
That's the tricky with cats.
That was it.
With cats, that happens a lot. One vehicle gets it, and we on the Safari Assam trip we did last year, one vehicle had black leopard, which I've never seen. And I was salty about not getting to see that, but hopefully get to run into another one. But yeah, it's cats, man. They are, like you say, they're slinky and sleuthy and sneaky. That's kind of what makes them so cool to see.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, is it just super to see these guys, and they were, we did see cheetah and lion and the buffalo. I actually found, black rhino. So we'd been looking at white rhinos, and we were sitting there on a stop for just, the sundowner kind of like, you have your gin and tonics and all that, which is proper way to do this kind of birding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking up in the hills, and I'm like, I think this is a black rhino. And I get one of the expert, drivers. I said, look at this guy here. And he was like, black rhino, and we got pretty awesome looks at it eventually, which is quite a rare animal and quite much harder to see because of their habitat. They're kind of a scrub forest. They eat leaves on trees and shrubs. They don't eat grass. So they're in much more enclosed situations. They're also much more dangerous than the white rhino. So that was all cool. We saw, and we saw the bronze-winged cursor was a cool bird.
Oh, yeah.
Violet-tipped cursor is another name of it.
What about the old
nocturnal shorebird?
pink-throated twin spot? Did that thing make an appearance for you?
Pink-throated twin spot, and then
great little Estrilded finch. They're so pretty.
Yeah, and up in Victoria Falls area, which was the extension, saw the red-throated twin spot as well. Those lot of neat stuff. African finfoot up there,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Like the sun grebe. There are just a lot of good stuff, throughout the trip. I think we saw, what was it, over 370 species or something like that. I don't forget. I'm such a bad numbers person. But one of the deals up in Zambia when we were in the extension for the Victoria Falls was that the place up there is in a 2-year drought, big time drought, like bad. So much so that the Victoria Falls, the Zambian part of it, because it's shared between Zambia and Zimbabwe, the Zambian part is essentially dry. So they always talk about Victoria Falls being this longest sheet of water of any waterfall on Earth. Well, that long sheet was absent. It's so dry. Wow. So all of the mammals like that can move, like the real, the big mammals are all coming towards the river and loading up into some of them even in town, like in the town of Livingstone. There are, zebras and giraffes coming into like hotel yards. And then the lodge where we were at was outside of town, was just full of elephants. And I'm not talking like the elephants were nearby. It was like the elephants would actually roll in and you might not be able to get out of your room because you couldn't leave because there were elephants around, and elephants are not friendly a lot of the time. They can be a real problem.
Yep.
And they were just eating up every tree in the yard, and they were like, chewing up everything, and then they'd roll through, and then, you wouldn't have elephants for a little bit, but then might come back and, a few hours later. And it was such that, there was two dogs there, one like a little dog and a big dog. The big dog would be sort of the guard dog, and he hung out with this night watchman called Morocco, and Morocco and the dog would go out and try to scare the elephants. They even had like an air horn during the day, like, the kind that you'd have like some like big reggae game show, like, burr, 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 they're like, right. And your shaggy concert.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They were doing this with these elephants, like getting them out of there. And elephants are, I guess, they have the big ears. They're like, oh crap, I can't stand that noise.
They are cranky. They're sort of old souls, elephants.
Yeah. And they would move off. But one night I hear the dog going out in the middle of the night. I don't know what time it is. And it's just like, rrr, 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 rrr. And suddenly like, like right out of the movies, that trumpeting, like, elephant goes off.
Yeah.
But seriously, it was like 5 feet from my room,
Oh, God.
So much so that I was like, Jesus, like, and then Keith, who's in the next room over, apparently he jumped out of bed so quickly that he pulled a muscle. It's like, it was that level of just intense fright, like
right.
something that loud,
yeah.
and
that
right
big
next to your room. Right.
Yeah. And Keith, for him, it'd be like hardwired. He's like, that's like, that sound is really, yeah.
Right. He's heard it many a time. Yeah. So this whole thing of the elephants was crazy. And local people who were, expats and stuff who, worked at lodges or ran lodges, we met one guy who said, this elephant thing, you guys are here for 2 days or 3 days. This is not normal. It's like, we haven't seen this ever.
Wow.
And then the lady who ran the place, Corinne, who ran the place we were at, she said that they'd had 200 elephants go by one day, like 2 weeks earlier, and just like eating up everything and chasing cars. And the locals said, well, so far we've had 8 people killed by the elephants in town this year. I'm like, okay, this is serious,
That's a lot of people, man. Jesus.
Yeah. The wildlife interaction there in this drought. And I don't know if the drought is associated with any kind of like long-term climate change or anything, but it's not good. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for the elephants. Not good for anybody, So it's It was really kind of frightening to see that.
I know
Fun
there's parts
in some ways, but frightening.
Yeah, right. It's a big issue down there. Elephants are one of the most beloved animals on Earth, obviously, but habitat is patchy in places. I think there's been a lot of conservation surrounding them, and they've been reintroduced in places, but they can reproduce pretty quickly, a few decades, and all of a sudden you can end up in a lot of elephants in some pretty small areas. And then what do you do?
Yeah,
and that is one of those things they don't even like to talk about in a lot of those parks down there in South Africa.
Yeah. And I think many people who have over the years heard the plight of elephants in the ivory trade. Basically, the ivory trade has kind of died, or at least it's much less of an issue than it was in the past. And so that's not really as much of a problem now, and it's helped the elephants recuperate. But in some cases, like you say, it's like they've done almost too well. And, they're so disruptive in the way that they deal with habitat that having too many elephants, it's almost like having too many white-tailed deer in the East. They change the habitat enough that eventually they suffer themselves from that habitat change when they're in big numbers like that.
One of the things, that I always think about in some parts of Africa that I've been, like there's some places you go, like in Tanzania, where the only trees left are enormous trees that are 1,000, 2,000 years old or more, because the elephants they're not letting anything else, anything else becomes a scratching post, someplace to rub off skin, or, they take it down. And you think, gosh, when these big old trees go from this landscape here, there's not going to be much left.
And that was the irony of it, is like when we were in the South African part in the Mayoni Reserve, where the elephants are really in a balance, kind of in check there. It took us a while to actually find elephants. It was a real effort to go and find them. And then we were laughing at the fact that, later we were like running away from them practically. It's like in Zambia. It's, but it's some of the things that you sort of see and learn when you're travel, and it's not necessarily what you expect sometimes.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I did a little digging out. Red Rocks does have multiple, I think it's got 2 or 3 eBird hotspots.
Okay.
And as I was looking, I was looking at it on the map, and I was like, did I see Shaggy there? Because we were just talking about Shaggy. And I was like, no, I did not see Shaggy. But I remembered the concert that I went to was the Smokin' Grooves tour, which included Ziggy Marley, A Tribe Called Quest, Cypress Hill, Busta Rhymes, and the Fugees. And then it came flooding back to me. I remember I was like sitting with a couple friends outside of the concert, getting ready to go in. We were just like kind of hanging out, I forget, for some reason. And I remembered that dude, all of a sudden this guy comes out of like a trailer, and it was one of the guys from the Fugees. I think his name was Praz. And he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, are you that guy from Sony?" And I was like, "No, man." I was, and I was like kind of like starstruck.
That's where you go, yeah.
And I know.
And then you get into like
I was about to be like, I'm here to see you, actually. And then I was like, that would sound weak.
No, you should have said like, who wants to know? Right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, wow.
Who's asking? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, then you get invited to the trailer. See,
well, shortly
wrong.
after that, a guy showed up and there was an exchange done. And I was like, he was definitely looking for some Mary Jane. And I was like, if I'd played my cards better, maybe I'd have gone into the trailer and hung out with those guys.
That's right.
But alas, I wasn't that cool then. And
can you look up
now.
Could you look up the menu there, see if they still have the Rocky Mountain oyster? No, you don't have to. But hey, back to some birds. I just want to say one of the cool things. So I've been at home here in Ontario for a few days, and I racked up in a few days another, I would say, 15, 16 new yard birds.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So like I'm
Where are you now?
126.
Oh, dude. I just got my 131 for our yard here.
I'm going to beat that forever.
Quickly. I should say so.
But like when we were picking this house, I was actually talking to Kat the other day about like how we came about this place. But one of the things I she was like looking at the places and this, the house and whatever. And she gave me like, here's a bunch we're looking at. And I was like, this one, because I looked at the map and I just thought this is like,
This is going to
the
be good.
corridor of migration or whatever. But the one thing I did not see that now, like in the last 2 days, I was like, oh, is this a funny, weird peninsula that I'm on? It's like an island, but then the peninsula kind of spreads. So it doesn't go to a point. It's like you could almost imagine it like a parallel to the main shore of the lake is this tip of the peninsula. It's almost like a anvil head, almost like, so one point over to the east is where the bird observatory is. And there's one point to the west where people do sea watches. And there's a bay in between all that. And the bay is where we live on the end of that bay. But from the bay to the actual open lake, like essentially if you didn't go around the peninsula, but just cut through, is not that much. It's like maybe, I don't know, kilometer, less than a mile. I don't know, kilometer and a half or whatever. So birds that are water birds are actually flying over my house, cutting over to get to the open water rather than following the lakeshore.
Oh, wow.
Around.
That's going to serve you well.
It's going to serve me well. So like I'm looking at the map now. They're going westward along the lakeshore, and they probably are like, oh, there's like a bay here. There's like a big point, and I think they gain elevation, and they're like, hey, just go over here. And in the last few days, I've had little flocks of hooded mergansers, red-breasted mergansers, white-winged scoters. And today, the good one for me was red-throated loon flew over, which is not that common. And this is just from watching a little bit in the mornings. And I'm like, oh my God, like this long term. And I was thinking the winter gulls are going to be flying over, going, oh, we can go cut over here. And I'm right on the flight line. And I'm like, mother of God. Like, what have we done? Like, it is really interesting to see, high flying, like from below, mergansers flying through and like multiple flocks. It's not just like, oh, here's, and they're in active migration. I mean, I'm thinking, am I going to have like redneck grebes flying over in the evening or something, at the right time of year? I don't know. But I was so stoked once I figured out what was, because at first I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
White-winged scoters. And then I was like, hold on, more birds. And then today I was like I looked at the map and I was like, I did not see this, but that's what's happening.
That's awesome.
And I'm sure it's a narrow corridor.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you think, I remember you mentioning that high flying tern way back when.
That too. I'd forgotten about that. And even like had some high flying, Bonaparte gulls and stuff flying over. I mean, in a crazy wind, I could see like a Jaeger flying over. It's like not impossible.
Yeah. I was just bemoaning the other day how, where I am, I obviously no water around for quite a ways. And I have 4 species of ducks after 4.5 years here.
Yeah.
And I have some more geese. I have, but I have seen brant and cackling geese, which are actually pretty good birds for the yard.
Pretty good,
because geese fly. They're more visible migrants, and if the ducks are migrating, often they're really high. But that's going to be the hardest thing for me is getting ducks and shorebirds from the yard here.
The irony is when I was in the coast in Half Moon Bay, my poorest group of birds was puddle ducks. Like, I mean, they just were absent from, like, they show up in little ponds here and there. But I mean, I remember, I had some things that I thought were pretty exciting, like common mergansers, which actually do live on coastal streams, right? So they were just moving stream to stream. But to try to get like birds that were common, shoveler, right? Green-winged teal, all those were just entirely absent, I mean, mallard, yes, but it was really, I'm like, when, how, and I kept on thinking it's going to be like an offshore wind day during the late winter. There's already movement of pintails or something. I'm going to see them. And And I failed, decades there, and I never saw a bunch of things that were super common, like ducks mainly.
Yeah, I think I've had 2 new yardbirds in the last week, and both were unsurprising. One was a savanna sparrow that kind of pitched into a big. It was up, it was on like a little snag of a partly dead oak, and I was like, huh, what's this? Looked, I was a savanna sparrow, and then it took off and kept moving like high, and then the other was a towhee, eastern towhee, which breed like less than a mile from here, but actually getting them in the yard is a different story. And I actually had them for several days in a row, assumed that I'd seen them here before. And then I was like kind of looking at some other eBird stuff, and I was like, oh, that was a new yardbird. But speaking of puddle ducks, dabblers, wood duck was one of my, let's see, I've had 6 new birds for the yard list this year. Wood duck was one of them. I've had black duck and mallards regular, and I've had common merganser a few times, which they breed on some of the rivers around here, and so you can see them in summer, and then in kind of the middle of winter, and in the heart of winter, you'll see flocks moving sometimes as things get icy in other places. But those are my only ducks, so it's got my work cut out for me there in the future. But yeah,
hey, I can see where our time is going, but we didn't get into any of the rare birds we're going to talk about. Man, should we discuss the albatross? At least?
The waved albatross,
the
goonie bird,
the goonie bird. Yeah, the last of the 4 North Pacific albatrosses to be seen in the ABA area. Like it was
the last goonie bird.
The last goonie. Well, unless they split that Senkaku albatross. But let's just not talk about that. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not make a nice story complicated with facts. This is a fact-free environment here.
That's right.
And I just want to say that 2 things. One of them is like, that's an awesome find. 2, we had a boat trip going out the same day as the albatross, and I'm like, why didn't we find it? Why? Our group. It was the Bodega boat rather than the Half Moon Bay boat in California that found it. So, and they're not that far apart from each other.
Yeah, especially as the waved albatross flies.
Right. The second thing I like is this is one that a lot of seabirdy people have been predicting,
waiting on,
should happen.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of time, but it's been a matter of time, like 20 years of kind of people have been talking about it. But
such a romantic name too, up there with wandering albatross, waved albatross. But I think what people that aren't familiar with it or haven't been to the Galapagos to see it might not know is that it always kind of reminds me of like a bald eagle. Like when you see it way out on either flying around out there, it doesn't really fly like a bald eagle, but especially like sitting on the water, it almoks looks like a bald eagle sitting on the water or something.
Yeah, because it's got a dark body and a pale head. So it's like, I've actually had people go, look at that. Looks like a bald eagle. I was like, no, it's a waved albatross. Yeah.
Amazing bird.
I have not heard the story of exactly how it showed up or what, maybe I'll try to get those details. Did it just fly in or, did it fly by or I'm not sure, but I don't know that this year's any special or anything that really kind of, you could say this was the year because of the water temperature or anything.
Right. Might have just been chance.
Just chance, I think, and you can't tell in waved albatross if you're a young one, like a juvenile or not, unless they really have some really good photographs of the wing, so, but that'd be another question. Was it a juvenile? Was it an adult? I don't know, but just a great find. Congratulations to the folks up there at their Redwood Region Ornithological Society who were running that pelagic trip out of Bodega Bay. So at the Cordell Bank. Yeah.
And that was a shocker when that came in. The other one I really loved, rare bird, was the Randall's Island Arctic warbler found by Ryan Zucker and a few other friends. That was one of those knock your socks off, like dream bird, finding a Siberian vagrant like that. The East Coast, one of those things of dreams.
I got to admit that when I first heard about it, I just was like, Like, how do they know it's not a Kamchatka leaf warbler? And then I was like, they actually had figured all that out. Like, I just came in there with my comment, like
came in with your pitchfork there. And,
my pitchfork, my cranky old man yelling at the clouds thing. And I was like, yeah, how do they know? Like, they all look the same, it's like, but they actually did figure it out based on call notes and I think just a lot of study and communication with people in the know from Asia. So that's actually really to be commended too, because one thing is finding something. B is like being diligent to actually figuring out exactly what it is when it's
especially when you're talking about a Philoscopus warblers. Warbler and that genus. It's actually the whole family is in one genus, which is like pretty for a genus that is that large. That is unusual. And a lot of those are really, really hard to suss out. But yeah, we should scoot, Al. But thanks, everybody, for listening. We will be back again soon with another episode of Lifeless to Birding Podcast. Al, you have a great day. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be good, everyone.
Bye-bye.